Hi, my name is Jos. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. My family has always been pretty pushy about my gender identity. Like I was raised Southern Baptist, so they expect you to have like flowers and frills on all your skirts and dresses, and everybody had like the dreaded like white lace socks and all that shit. Like the bubbles in your hair, they would braid all the plaits. It was so extra, hot combs and everything. So it was trying for me. I didn't like the way that they wanted my femme to look, and over time my femme has changed a lot, but they always try to push me toward being more feminine, even though I'm sure that they knew that was a hopeless cause, but they were really pressed about it. Um, I I don't think I've had a conversation explicitly about my gender, but with one of my parents, they were really concerned that I had like way too many like Oxford shoes, and like all my ties were like in a rainbow pattern, and I had my bow tie set up, and it was like making them concerned. So they were like, Joss, I'm really concerned that if you transition, like it's going to be a problem. I don't know if I'm okay with that. And I had to let that parent know that if I did decide to transition or change my gender or whatever, that at this point in my life, it's a personal choice. And it's something that has to do with me being the best me I can be. And I can't live my life trying to be a me someone else wants me to be. So that took a really long time to get to that place in my journey with my gender, but that's where I am now. I think most people's barriers to understanding queerness and gender comes with this idea that gender and queerness are common sense, and that the things that they've learned about gender, like men are one way, women are one way, etc., has some sort of like logical basis that can't be challenged. And then when you come to them with information that puts some nuance onto that, it's much easier to sort of like shut out that conversation than to really examine how does gender show up in their lives, and like how does it change and fluctuate throughout their life when they were a child to this present day, can give them some perspective on it. So I think that a lot of times the barrier is that we're trying to use too many academic words and too many things that folks are not familiar with, when those things are like useful because they're precise, but at the same time, people just need to hear stories. Like they respond more to stories and narratives about gender than a textbook definition, because they feel like that they can read the same textbook. I always give people this challenge of, oh, I can't remember someone's pronouns. Like, it's too complicated. Why do they keep changing their pronouns? That one, if you can ask a question, like say a scenario, somebody left a phone somewhere out in public, I would say to them, I would say, what would you say if you found a random abandoned iPhone? You would say, well, someone left their phone. And I was like, if it's easy enough for you to say someone left their phone, then you know how to use gender neutral pronouns already. It's not something that you have to like learn. You just have to be more mindful of. And I think that that's not really asking people to do too much. I think that kids are accessing gender in different ways. Kind of depends on how much internet a kid has to gauge like how much they understand about gender, or if they have a close relative that can talk to them about those types of things. I've had conversations with kids about like what is transgender, what are queer identities, and talking to them explicitly, but in an appropriate way for their age group about these things, because they have lots of questions about them. I think that schools as a whole should make these conversations like more normal and not try to scandalize like talking about the individual humanities of other people just because they're not humanities that you're familiar with. And that's like a struggle through K-12, I think. I think some teachers think it's practical for kids to have a better understanding of different identities that people have as children, so that when they grow up and become adults, that they can still hold on to that understanding, rather than having this idea that kids should think about everything is so standard or picture perfect or something that can't be questioned, and then they grow up to be adults who can't empathize with other people. So um, yeah. Well, I work with younger kids, so many of them aren't out or anything like that. But you can note kids who you feel a kindred spirit with, right? And those are the kids that I try to reach out to and be available for. I mean, all my kids, of course, but especially for those kids, and make sure that they are confident. Instead of having an explicit conversation about a student, I have a student who is an ice skater, right? And this is not like a manly sport to do. And they were thinking about quitting ice skating because they were getting picked on so badly. But instead of having a conversation like, this is your deciding their sexuality for them, I would show up as support. Like, you should feel confident in yourself as an ice skater. It takes a lot of athleticism to get up and down the rink that way, and it takes a lot of coordination and balance. And I don't think that you should take seriously people who question that. I mean, after all, who questions the jocks on the basketball team for their athleticism? So I show up in that way, as a way of support and like affirming the things that they love, not trying to make a decision for them if they're trans or queer or not, because that's not my place. I'm here just to like help you. I think I would say good advice, or just advice, is that educators have to learn about queer and trans issues. Have to. And they need to become more culturally competent so that they can serve all the communities of children that come through their doors and support them. And I think there's really no excuse, and I've seen this in a lot of educational settings where, students will complain about the issues that they face, be it homophobia, be it misogyny, be it racism, and teachers will become extremely defensive and say, I never did that to you. Or do you think that I'm racist? How dare you, accost me and make me listen to you, or me listen to your conversations? But as teachers, we ask our students to listen to our conversations all the time. We ask them to be still and take in what they can learn from us. So I think that we can learn a lot from our students, and we can learn to fix a lot of the issues on individual levels with students by teaching them how to be humane and teaching them different types and paths of humanity. And our explicit conversations about gender and sexuality is one way of doing that.